hose attaches. This red piece isn't always on here. And you just want it snug. You don't have to
No over tightening.
over tighten it. Yeah.
Okay.
That's plenty. Got a knife, anybody?
Nope. Mine's on my
I
desk.
know you got a knife.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Oh, there's one more. And then for easy storage, I always recommend to walk the line out. Usually I let it sit in the sun for like an hour or two.
It's been coiled up for a while. Yeah.
Whenever they're new. But for easy storage, just walk it out. Once all the kinks are out, you'll walk it back so that you have a half loop, and then you can double wrap around the pump for easy storage.
Okay.
So now I'm just gonna let it sit.
We're gonna paint our wall on the gate.
So we also sell, I don't think in your situation it would work in a way that you would need it, but we also sell extensions for the
Okay.
guns. So you can spray, say you've got a ceiling that you're doing, you can spray it from a wand, from
Okay.
6 foot, 8 foot, 10 foot. We have all kinds of different size wands as well.
Okay.
So this here is called your tip guard. This is where your tip will sit in. This blue piece, they are interchangeable. We have an orange one and a blue one. If you are going to be using the blue tips or the green tips, the green tip, there's one in that box there.
The green's for metal.
The green is for
Finer.
fine finish.
Okay.
It atomizes the paint a little bit
Nice.
better. The blue tips last a long time. They're more for like your standard latexes for painting houses and stuff.
Okay.
But this one's gonna be your fine finish. And then we also have an orange guard that only accepts the black tip. The black tips are the rack 5s. They're a little bit cheaper, but they don't last as long as these ones do.
Gotcha. Okay.
First thing you're gonna do is put your, we're gonna pretend this is paint.
Sure.
We're gonna clean the pump because there's oil in the filters now.
Okay.
And I'll show you that. So it's kind of like when you're doing a lawnmower, you want to prime the gas through. So this here is your prime valve.
Okay.
Down is the prime position, which is going to force liquid out of this tube, and it's going to push it out. This is your pickup tube. That's what's going to pull product in.
Makes sense.
So there's an on-off switch on the back,
There's a prime setting here too.
and then on this dial, this is your pressure setting.
Okay.
So whenever you're painting really thick stuff, you want it as high pressure as you can get it. But whenever you're doing your low pressure with your metal, you'll want to be in this green range with the green tip.
Gotcha.
And then the blue tip, you want to be in the blue range.
Fair enough.
And then there's a prime slow setting as well. So we'll flip it on. That's going to start priming and sucking up the water to push out here. Once that's in, once water starts pushing through there, see all the oil?
This is all full of oil.
Yep. So now that water's pushing there, we'll flip it to the gun. Once we flip it up, you're on the gun. And what I'm gonna do is release the air out of all the line. Yeah, it's still in prime because I want to get all the, it's not gonna push as hard. Because if you have it high pressure, it's just gonna blow. Yeah. So now I'm sure that I've got paint in my line and paint in my prime. So now we're good. As soon as I release, it pressurizes. Now that there's no air. So I need to tighten this piece a little bit more. I only had one wrench though. I need another,
You find me
unfortunately.
another.
Sorry.
No worries. Thank you.
luckily it's just water. That's why we do it with water the first time.
That's right.
So I'm gonna reduce that pressure. And then while we're waiting, since there's no pressure on here, this is your manifold filter. This is the first filter that the paint well, technically this is the first filter that the paint passes through. This will be your second filter that the paint passes through.
Comes off.
Okay.
And then this will be your third filter inside the gun. So
We
this
can
gun
just
comes
clean the
apart.
filters, or do we need to
Yeah.
replace
Yep,
them?
you can clean them.
Okay.
Once they get totally clogged, you want to replace them.
Okay.
But that's easy as that to get them all
Every
apart
time
and
we're
clean
done
them.
using them, we gotta clean it.
Yep.
And that plastic one comes off that and you clean it too.
Okay.
Yep.
There's a brush, but just water and maybe a
Water and a little bit of soap maybe,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, that's all you should need.
All right. Fair enough. So don't worry about using paint thinners of any kind or cleaners of just soap and water.
Only if you're using an oil-based product through this, you want to clean it with an oil-based cleaner. So
Okay.
like a lacquer thinner or
Water-based,
paint
soap
thinner.
and water,
Yep.
oil-based, paint thinner, or something like that.
Correct.
Okay.
Now it should be good. Yep, thank you.
Whoops. Sorry, man.
No, that's on me. I should have tightened it down. I forgot I had it open. So now the rig is pressurized. You can hear it there. Then what you'll do, you'll put your guard on. And the guard, there's a couple of different ways. There's with the tips, you'll see in that packaging, you see the black metal. So you have the metal and then the rubber gasket there.
Okay.
The yellow piece is if you're doing solvents or something thinner. You don't ever really use that unless you're using the thin stains and solvents. So this one will be your standard. As you can see on the back side here of that gasket, it's basically an open circle.
Okay.
That circle will fit on the end of this tip, and then you'll take the gasket, put it on there, and you can just push it in and it'll set where it's supposed to set.
Okay.
And then your tip only goes in one way and then it can turn.
Okay.
So this is your spray side. That's the side that you're going to be using mostly. If you ever get a clog for some reason, what you want to do is flip it to this side, and whenever you spray it, it'll clear that clog through the tip. But you don't want to spray that on the surface you're painting, just like in a bucket or...
That'll splatter everywhere
Yeah.
and be bad.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's the setting that you want to be on. Get this screwed on here. This is just hand tight as well. And then if you're right-handed, I typically like the tip to be on the left-hand side. That way you have easy access. If you get a clog, you can just clear it.
Okay.
And then we're good there. Let's see.
You can paint the dirt if you want.
Yeah, let's
this
do
is
that.
Concrete,
So
just water. So.
standard practice is you want to be 12 inches away from your surface that you're spraying. 12 inches away will prevent heavy paints, and too far away will prevent it from being too light. So 12 inches is the standard. Your tips will have a number on here. So this one's a 515 that came with the gun.
Okay.
So the 5 is the first number. That number, you double that number, and that tells you what your fan pattern is at 12 inches.
Oh.
So a 515, it would be a 10-inch fan from 12 inches away. And then the 15 is the orifice size, so it's gonna be 15 millimeters wide. And then they have smaller tips like that one. That one's I believe a 312.
Okay.
So it'd be a 6-inch fan, 12 millimeter full orifice.
Gotcha.
So 12 inches away, you can see we've got about a 10-inch fan. And you always want to do a 50% overlap. Now there's no air in this. This is all liquid.
It's all liquid.
So if there's any air that gets in the line, you'll know right away because that pump will start
Going
screaming
fast.
at you. Yeah.
Okay.
Once it starts screaming at you, you'll want to go over there and prime it just to get that air out of the line.
Okay. Fair enough.
So yeah, it's that simple.
Cool.
come over with
Yeah, it gets after it. Awesome.
And it works just as well with paints, latexes, anything. Any questions?
that. Yes, so when we clean it, Troy brought up a good question.
Yeah.
How do you clean the line? the paint out of the line.
Yeah, so same process. So right now there's water in the line.
Yeah.
You'll prime the water. So if this wasn't water, if it was paint, you would take the pickup tube, put it in water. You'll prime the paint out of the prime tube.
Yep.
And then you'll take your water through the line and gun, and you just spray it through.
So same thing, water based, use soap and water.
Yep.
If you were using a oil based, use some sort of thinner
Yep.
first, then soap and water.
So
or do you even water?
I've ended up
If
with
you're-
a residue inside of the lines, and then it ends up letting go and showing up in other things. And it's a different color.
So you have to put at least 2 to 3 gallons of water through to get all the color out of the line. So that's what's gonna help. And then whenever you're clearing the paint out of the line, so say this is our paint and we're trying to get the paint out, what we'll do is we'll prime water.
So go back to the
So-
prime setting.
Water's in the primer or in the prime valve bucket, but we still have paint in the line. So we want to save that paint. So we'll put the paint back in the paint bucket, clear the paint in there, and it'll prime. So we'll leave it on the slow setting, let it push all the paint out of the line.
Yep.
Once you see a little spit of water, it'll float on top of the paint. You'll see the water right away. So once you see the water, you'll stop and you'll just push 2 to 3 gallons of water through until you start getting clean water coming through here. This will be in water at that point in time.
Okay. Seems fair enough.
So when we're done painting, put it on prime, pump the
Pump water through.
first you put you pump the paint back into the paint bucket first.
By pumping water through it.
Correct. So you got to suck water in
Yeah.
first.
Yep.
So we'll say this is our water bucket,
Yep.
and we have another paint bucket
Yep,
here.
yep. So put it on prime.
We'll
and,
put it on prime. Make sure
Yep.
water's coming through.
Yep.
Because it has paint in the line
Sure,
at that point
sure.
in time. So make sure water comes through the prime, and then you can take your
to the paint
gun,
bucket, yeah.
fill the rest of the paint up until you see water coming out of your
And
gun,
then put it in the
and then you'll put
water
it
waste
back over
bucket.
in the jump bucket, and then you'll pump water.
Pretty simple.
Usually 2 to 3 gallons gets you clean. So.
Okay.
And then if you're not happy with the 2 to 3 gallons, because a lot of times paint will build up on this, so you'll get painted water basically in the water bucket. You can refill your bucket with water and do another clean. But usually 2 to 3 gallons gets you through.
Okay.
Gets it nice and clean.
Perfect. I like it.
And then for storage, what I usually do, I'll turn this all the way down and just leave it just slightly pressurized. You don't want it to be full pressure whenever you store it because it might break a seal. So just leave a little bit of pressure on the line. So just enough to where it's pushing the water out whenever you pull the trigger.
Okay.
So you store it with the line full of water?
You can, yes. They have a product. We have a product. It's called Pump Saver. It's another product you can put in there instead of water. I'd recommend getting it. We can get you someone if you come back to the store. I can give it to your wife. It's a blue product. It's a concentrated sealant basically, and what it does is you mix it 50-50 with water, and you can store that product in there, and it saves your packings and your seals and stuff.
So it's
The good
better to
thing-
leave the hose hooked up to it and stored with mild pressure in it than it is to disconnect the hose and all that.
Correct. And
Okay.
it depends on how long you're going to be storing it, though. If
Okay.
you're going to be storing it for over a month without use, then you'll just take the line off and get all the water out. But if
Yeah.
you're going to be using it,
That's mostly
Within a
our
week?
case. We're not constantly painting, but it's kind of between projects here and there. So
Okay.
if it's going to be more than a few weeks to a month, you're saying disconnect the hose and let the pressure
if
out.
it's going to
and
be
just-
more than a few weeks, then I would disconnect everything.
Okay.
What's a couple of guys?
So that's actually for that's storage for your tips and housings if you want. There's a
okay.
couple of different things you can use it for, but there's no specific use. A lot of people use it for storing their products that they're using. Or some people will use it as a catch-all. So say if you're painting inside someone's home and you want to move your pump, what they'll do is they'll move the
Stick it in
stick
there.
back here and let it fill up with paint so they can carry it through the house without it causing an issue.
Gotcha.
So your